The road into Velgrad Forest was almost empty. Only one cracked highway led there. No buses stopped nearby, no tourists stayed long. The forest sat between mountains near the border. Dark pine trees covered everything for miles. Even during daylight, the place looked cold. People in nearby villages avoided speaking about it, especially after sunset, but online, the forest had become famous. Videos about missing hikers spread across forums. Strange sounds, abandoned campsites, people disappearing without explanation. Most called it fake. A horror story made for views. Daniel Mercer did not believe any of it. He was a documentary filmmaker from England, 32 years old, known online for exploring abandoned places and debunking myths. His audience loved dangerous locations, and Velgrad Forest was perfect for his next video. At the moment he crossed the border into the region, the atmosphere changed. Small villages became rare. Road signs looked faded and old. Rain clouds covered the mountains. Daniel kept filming from inside his car. "Day one," he said into the camera. "People claim this forest makes humans disappear." He laughed softly. "Let's see how real these stories actually are." Hours later, he stopped at a small gas station beside the highway. The station looked abandoned. Only one old man sat inside near the counter. The fluorescent lights flickered constantly. Daniel grabbed coffee and snacks while the camera continued recording. "You from England?" the old man asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Here for the forest?" Daniel smiled. "That obvious?" The old man did not smile back. For a moment, the station became completely silent, and even the rain outside seemed quieter. Then the old man spoke again. "Nobody enters this forest twice." Daniel chuckled awkwardly. "That sounds dramatic." The old man slowly looked toward the dark tree line outside. "You think the warning means people die there," he whispered. "But that is not what it means." Daniel waited for him to continue. But the old man stayed silent. A truck suddenly passed outside. The noise broke the tension. Daniel paid for the supplies and left. Before reaching his car, he noticed something strange. Every vehicle in the parking lot faced away from the forest. None faced toward it. He looked at the trees in the distance, tall, still, watching. The rain became heavier as he drove closer. Soon the road narrowed into cracked pavement surrounded by endless forest. No houses, no lights, nothing, just trees. Daniel finally reached the old forest entrance before sunset. A rusted metal gate stood open beside a warning sign covered in scratches. "Most trails closed, enter at your own risk." Someone had painted another message underneath in red. "Don't follow the voices." Daniel smirked at the camera. Nice touch. But even he sounded less confident now. He parked beside the entrance and stepped outside. The cold air hit instantly. No birds, no insects, only silence. Complete silence. Daniel looked around slowly. The forest felt wrong, not haunted, not cursed, just wrong, like the entire place was waiting. He shook the feeling away and continued filming. "Tonight I'll camp near the entrance," he said. "Tomorrow morning I go deeper inside." As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, the trees grew darker. And somewhere deep inside the forest, something moved. Night came fast inside Velgrad Forest. One moment the sky was grey, the next darkness covered everything. Daniel set up his tent near the old entrance gate. A small fire burned beside him. His camera rested on a tripod facing the trees. Rainwater dripped from the branches above. The silence still bothered him. No wind, no insects, nothing. It felt unnatural. Daniel forced himself to stay relaxed. "This is exactly how places like this create fear," he said into the camera. "Silence makes people imagine things." But even while speaking, he kept glancing toward the forest. The trees looked endless at night, like a black wall stretching forever. Hours passed slowly. Daniel reviewed footage inside the tent while rain tapped softly above him. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Very slow. Crunch. Crunch, crunch. Somewhere outside the tent, Daniel froze. The footsteps stopped. He listened carefully. Nothing. He laughed nervously. Probably an animal. But deep down, it did not sound like an animal. The footsteps started again. This time closer. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Circling the tent, Daniel grabbed the camera and slowly unzipped the entrance. Cold air rushed inside. The forest stood completely dark. His flashlight moved across the trees. Nothing there. No movement, no animals, only rain. The footsteps had stopped again. Daniel stepped outside carefully. "Might be locals trying to scare tourists," he whispered. He walked around the campsite. The muddy ground showed no fresh tracks. That should have comforted him. Instead, it made him more uneasy. He returned inside the tent and locked the zipper. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m., and then 2 a.m. Daniel tried sleeping, but every few minutes, crunch, crunch, crunch. The footsteps returned, always circling, always just outside, never too close, never too far. At some point, exhaustion finally pulled him asleep. Morning arrived with pale grey light. The rain had stopped. Daniel crawled outside immediately and froze. Footprints surrounded the tent, dozens of them, human footprints, deep in the mud. They formed a perfect circle around the campsite. Daniel stared in disbelief. Okay, that's not funny anymore. He followed the tracks away from the tent with the camera recording. The footprints led toward the trees, step after step after step. Then suddenly, they stopped. Not faded, not turned around. Stopped, as if whoever made them simply vanished. Daniel looked around slowly. The forest was silent again. Then his camera emitted a strange burst of static. He frowned and replayed footage from the night before. At first, everything looked normal: rain, darkness, empty trees. Then faint audio appeared beneath the static. Whispers, very quiet. Daniel turned the volume higher. Multiple voices spoke at once, too distorted to understand clearly, but one sentence became painfully clear. "Come deeper." Daniel's expression changed. For the first time since arriving, he looked genuinely afraid, and somewhere far inside Velgrad Forest, a distant figure stood motionless between the trees, watching him. Daniel did not leave, even after hearing the whispers. Even after seeing the footprints disappear into nothing. Part of him wanted to drive away immediately, but another part, the filmmaker part, needed answers. By noon, he packed his gear and drove to the nearest village. The place was small and quiet. Old stone houses lined muddy roads. Most windows were covered by curtains. People stared at Daniel as he passed. Not curious, nervous. He entered a tiny cafe near the center of the village. The moment he mentioned Velgrad Forest, the room went silent. An elderly woman crossed herself immediately. A man near the window stood up and left. Daniel noticed everyone avoiding eye contact. "You people really hate that place," he said carefully. Nobody answered. Finally, the cafe owner leaned closer. "5 years ago," she whispered, "a rescue team went inside looking for missing hikers." Daniel immediately grabbed his camera. "How many?" 8. "What happened to them?" The woman's hands trembled slightly. Only one came back." Daniel felt a chill run through him. What did he say? The woman looked toward the window nervously. "He stopped speaking about the forest years ago." "Where is he now?" She hesitated, then slowly pointed toward the edge of the village. "Last house near the river." Rain began falling again as Daniel walked there. The house looked isolated from the rest of the village. Wooden boards covered half the windows. The garden had died long ago. Daniel knocked twice, no answer. He turned to leave. Then the door slowly opened behind him. A thin man stood there, late 50s, pale skin, sunken eyes. He looked exhausted even while standing still. "You should leave," the man whispered immediately. Daniel introduced himself quickly. "I'm documenting what happened in the forest." The man's face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. "You don't understand that place," he said. Daniel carefully asked about the missing rescue team. For several seconds, the man said nothing. Then he slowly opened the door wider. Inside the house, every mirror was covered with cloth. The air smelled damp and old. Daniel sat across from him at a small table while rain hit the roof outside. "There were 8 of us," the man finally said quietly. "We entered the forest after 3 hikers disappeared." "What happened?" The man stared at the floor. "At first, nothing. He swallowed hard. Then the forest changed. Daniel frowned. What do you mean changed? The paths moved. The trees moved. We kept walking in circles. Daniel tried staying rational. You were lost. The man slowly looked up. No. His voice became weaker. The forest wanted us lost. Silence filled the room. Daniel noticed the man's hands shaking badly. We heard voices at night, he continued, people calling for help. Some sounded like our families. Daniel remembered the whispers from his recording. What happened to the others? The man's breathing grew uneven. One by one, they disappeared. Disappeared how? They walked into the trees. The rain outside became heavier. Daniel leaned forward carefully. And you escaped? The man stared directly into his eyes. No one escapes Velgrad Forest. Daniel felt the room suddenly colder. The man stood up quickly. You need to leave before sunset. Daniel rose slowly. One last question. The man stopped near the doorway. What did you see in there? For several seconds, the old survivor said nothing. Then he whispered something so quietly, Daniel almost missed it. The forest changes when it wants you. The door slammed shut immediately after. Daniel stood alone outside in the rain, confused, uneasy, but still determined. Back near the forest entrance, he reviewed his footage inside the car. That was when he noticed something terrifying. During the interview, for 3 seconds, a dark figure had been standing behind the old man inside the house, perfectly still, watching the camera. Daniel's blood ran cold because he was certain of one thing: nobody else had been inside that room. Daniel barely slept that night. He kept replaying the footage inside the car again and again, every time the dark figure appeared behind the old survivor. Tall, thin, almost blending into the shadows, and every time the footage reached that moment, the audio distorted violently, like the camera itself refused to record it. By morning, the rain had stopped. Fog covered the forest entrance. Daniel stepped outside, holding his camera tightly. You've come too far now, he muttered to himself. Part of him knew he should leave, but fear had turned into obsession. He needed to understand what was happening inside Velgrad Forest. He crossed the old gate shortly after sunrise. The deeper he walked, the colder the air became. Pine trees blocked most of the sunlight, their branches twisted together overhead like claws. Daniel marked trees with orange tape to avoid getting lost. Every few minutes he checked his GPS. At first, everything seemed normal. Then the signal vanished completely. No service, he whispered. Hours passed. The forest remained silent. No birds, no animals, nothing alive. Then Daniel noticed something strange ahead. A narrow trail cut through the trees, fresh mud, broken branches. It looked recently used, but he was certain it had not been there yesterday. He checked his printed map carefully. Nothing. No marked trail existed in that area. Daniel slowly raised the camera. This wasn't here before. The path disappeared into thick fog deeper inside the forest. For a long moment he hesitated, then he followed it. The further he walked, the stranger the forest became. Symbols appeared carved into tree trunks, circles, lines, shapes he did not recognize. Some looked ancient, others looked freshly carved. Daniel touched one carefully. The wood felt warm. He immediately pulled his hand away. A sudden metallic clicking sound came from his backpack. His compass spun wildly inside, round and round, and faster every second. Daniel frowned. That's impossible. He pulled out a second compass from his pocket. It spun too. The air suddenly felt heavier. Daniel turned slowly in circles. The forest around him looked different now. Darker, denser. The fog had thickened so much he could barely see ahead. Then he noticed something worse. The silence was gone, very faintly. He could hear breathing, not his own, multiple breaths surrounding him somewhere beyond the trees. Daniel aimed the flashlight into the fog. Nothing visible, but the breathing continued. Slow, patient, watching. "Who's there?" he shouted. No answer, only silence again. Daniel began walking faster. The trail twisted deeper through the forest. After nearly 20 minutes, he stopped suddenly. His orange trail marker hung from a nearby tree. Daniel froze. Impossible. And he had never passed this area before. He looked around carefully. Another marker hung further ahead, then another, all leading deeper inside. No. No. His breathing became uneven. He turned around quickly. The path behind him was gone. Only trees remained. Endless trees. Daniel pushed through branches, desperately trying to retrace his steps, but every direction looked identical. The fog swallowed everything. Then somewhere behind him, a branch snapped. Daniel spun around instantly, far between the trees. A figure stood motionless, too far to see clearly, tall, human-shaped, watching him. Daniel raised the camera with shaking hands. The figure slowly lifted one arm and pointed deeper into the forest. Daniel backed away slowly. His camera shook in his hands. The figure remained completely still between the trees, hidden by fog, watching him. "Hey," Daniel shouted, "who are you?" No answer came. The figure did not move. Then suddenly, it stepped behind a tree and vanished. Daniel rushed forward through the fog. Branches scraped against his jacket, but when he reached the spot, nothing was there. No footprints, no movement, only silence. Daniel turned in circles, trying to stay calm. "This place is messing with me," he whispered. He forced himself to breathe slowly, then a voice echoed through the forest. "Daniel." His blood froze instantly. The voice sounded familiar, soft, warm. His mother's voice. Daniel stared into the trees in disbelief. That was impossible. His mother had died 11 years earlier. "Daniel." The voice came again. Closer this time, tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. Every memory returned instantly. Hospital rooms, ESA machines, her final night alive. "No," he whispered shakily. "No, this isn't real." Another voice suddenly called from deeper inside the forest, a man screaming for help. Daniel recognized that voice too. It matched audio from one of the missing hiker videos he had researched before coming here. The same man reported missing 3 years ago. "Please help me." The scream echoed through the trees. Then another voice appeared. Then another. Dozens. Men, women, children, all calling from different directions. Some cried, some whispered, some laughed softly. Daniel covered his ears. "Stop!" But the voices only grew louder. One of them moved directly behind him. "Turn around." Daniel spun instantly. Nobody there. Only fog drifting slowly between trees. His breathing became uneven again, and he started walking faster through the forest, trying to escape the sounds. But the voices followed him everywhere. Then night began falling. Darkness spread rapidly beneath the trees. Daniel realized he still could not find a way out. Panic slowly replaced logic. He built a small fire near a fallen tree and kept the camera recording constantly. The forest looked alive at night. Shadows moved strangely between branches, and every few minutes, he heard footsteps nearby. Always circling, never approaching fully. Daniel checked the camera battery, 30% remaining. His flashlight flickered weakly. Then suddenly, a light appeared far between the trees. Daniel stood immediately. Another light appeared beside it. Then another. 3 pale lights floating silently through the darkness. Not flashlights, too smooth, too steady. And they moved slowly between the trees like drifting lanterns. Daniel zoomed in with the camera. Shapes began forming beneath the lights. Human figures, tall silhouettes walking silently through the forest. Daniel's pulse raced. "Hello?" he shouted desperately. The figures stopped instantly. All 3 turned toward him at the exact same moment. Even from far away, Daniel could feel them staring. Then one stepped forward into clearer view, and Daniel nearly dropped the camera. The figure looked exactly like him. Same face, same clothes, but pale, emotionless. Standing motionless beneath the trees, Daniel stumbled backward in horror. The second figure slowly pointed toward the darkness behind him. A whisper suddenly came beside Daniel's ear, very close. "You shouldn't have come here." He spun around violently, nobody there. And the fire beside him suddenly died. Darkness swallowed the forest completely, and somewhere nearby, something began walking toward him through the trees. The footsteps moved slowly through the darkness. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Daniel grabbed the flashlight with trembling hands. Its weak beam cut through the fog. Nothing visible, But the footsteps continued, closer every second. Daniel backed away from the dead fire. "Who's there?" he shouted. Silence answered him. Then suddenly the footsteps stopped. The forest became completely still again. Daniel waited several seconds before forcing himself to move. He could not stay there, not in the dark, not with whatever was surrounding him. He packed his equipment quickly and pushed deeper through the trees, using the flashlight as his only guide. The fog thickened around him. Branches clawed at his jacket as he walked. Minutes felt like hours. Then finally, he saw something ahead, a fence, rusted metal hidden beneath vines. Daniel slowed carefully. Behind the fence stood several old buildings, almost completely swallowed by the forest. A research camp, floodlights hung broken above empty paths. Satellite dishes leaned sideways. Windows shattered long ago. The place looked abandoned for decades, yet the gate stood slightly open. Daniel stepped inside cautiously. "This wasn't on any map," he whispered into the camera. The air inside felt different, heavier, as if the forest itself avoided the place. One building still had power. Very faint lights flickered inside. Daniel approached slowly and pushed the door open. The room smelled of mold and dust. Old computers lined the walls, research papers covered tables. More coffee mugs still sat beside equipment. Everything looked abandoned in a hurry, as if people suddenly ran away. Daniel searched through stacks of files. Most pages were ruined by moisture, but some words remained readable. Subject disorientation, memory loss, auditory hallucinations, behavioral replacement. Daniel frowned. What the hell happened here? He continued searching until he found several cassette tapes locked inside a cabinet. A dusty recorder sat nearby. Daniel inserted the first tape carefully. Static filled the room. Then a woman's voice spoke. "Research log 17. Subjects continue reporting voices from deep within the forest." The tape crackled loudly. Several staff members claim they are seeing doubles of themselves. Daniel's expression darkened immediately. The woman continued. "The forest appears to react to observation. It changes routes, distances, and terrain." Another burst of static interrupted the recording. Then the woman whispered something quietly. "We believe the forest is alive." Daniel stared at the recorder. The tape continued playing. "Exposure time increases psychological deterioration. Subjects eventually lose." Static swallowed the sentence completely. Then came screaming, loud, terrified, multiple people shouting at once. Daniel jerked backward. The recorder crackled violently. A man yelled through the static, "Don't let them inside." Another scream followed, then gunshots. The tape suddenly ended. Silence returned to the building. Daniel's hands shook slightly as he removed the cassette. That was when he noticed something horrifying on the wall nearby. Tall marks scratched into the metal surface, dozens of them, like someone had been counting days. The final message was carved much deeper than the others. "It copies us." Daniel slowly stepped backward. Then the lights above him flickered. Once, twice, then all power inside the building died instantly. Darkness swallowed the room. A low metallic sound echoed somewhere deeper in the camp. A door opening. Daniel aimed the flashlight toward the hallway. At first he saw nothing. Then, very slowly, a pale face appeared at the far end of the corridor, smiling at him in the dark. Daniel froze. The pale face remained motionless at the end of the hallway, its smile stretched too wide, too unnatural. The flashlight trembled in Daniel's hand. "Who are you?" he whispered. The figure did not answer. Then the lights flickered briefly, and for less than a second. And when darkness returned, the figure was closer, much closer. Daniel stumbled backward immediately. His shoulder slammed into a metal shelf, papers scattered across the floor. The flashlight beam shook violently as he aimed it forward again. The hallway was empty. Nothing there. Daniel's breathing became frantic. "No, no!" A sudden banging sound exploded somewhere outside the building. Then another, metal striking metal. Daniel rushed toward the exit. The cold night air hit him instantly. Fog covered the research camp now, thicker than before. The banging continued nearby. Clang, clang, clang. Daniel followed the noise carefully around one of the buildings. That was when he saw him. A man stood beside the fence, hitting a loose metal pipe repeatedly against the gate. Thin, dirty, wild-eyed, and his beard looked overgrown. His clothes were old and torn. The man stopped when he noticed Daniel. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then the stranger spoke quietly. "You shouldn't stay here after dark." Daniel lowered the flashlight slightly. "Who are you?" The man ignored the question. Instead, he stared at Daniel's camera. "You've been hearing them already, haven't you?" Daniel hesitated. "The voices?" The stranger nodded slowly. "And you've seen people in the trees?" Daniel's silence answered for him. The man looked away nervously toward the forest. "They know you now." Daniel stepped closer. "You worked here?" The man laughed softly, a broken laugh. "I was part of the research team." Daniel's eyes widened. "You survived?" The man's face became empty. "That depends on what you call survival." Wind suddenly moved through the trees for the first time since Daniel arrived. The forest almost sounded alive. The stranger motioned toward one of the abandoned cabins. "Come inside before they get closer." Daniel followed carefully. The cabin interior was dark except for candles scattered around the room. Blankets covered every mirror. Symbols were painted across walls and windows. The stranger locked the door immediately after entering. "Why cover the mirrors?" Daniel asked. The man avoided eye contact. "Because sometimes they stand behind you." Daniel felt cold again. The stranger sat heavily beside the candles. "My name is Marek," he said quietly. Daniel sat across from him. "You were here during the experiments?" Marek nodded. "At first we thought the forest caused hallucinations. But we were wrong." He stared directly at Daniel. "The forest learns people." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "It watches you. It studies you. And eventually—" Marek's voice weakened. "It makes another version." Daniel remembered the figure that looked exactly like him. His stomach tightened. "That's impossible." Marek slowly shook his head. "No. What's impossible is leaving unchanged." Silence filled the cabin. Then Daniel noticed something strange. The candlelight illuminated most of the room, but not Marek. His reflection was missing from the mirror behind him. Daniel stared carefully. The mirror showed the room, the candles, the walls, but not the man sitting in front of him. Daniel's face slowly lost color. Marek noticed where he was looking. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Marek whispered quietly, "I told you." "Some of us never really come back." A sudden knock echoed against the cabin door. 3 slow knocks. Both men froze instantly. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice came from outside, Daniel's voice. "Open the door." Daniel stepped back instantly. His heart slammed against his ribs. Outside the cabin door, his own voice repeated again, "Open the door." Marek moved quickly, grabbing Daniel's arm. "Don't respond," he whispered. The cabin fell into heavy silence. Another knock. Slower this time. Knock. Then nothing. Daniel stared at the door, waiting for it to open on its own. But it didn't. Instead, something far more disturbing happened. The candles in the room flickered at the exact same time, as if the entire forest had blinked. Marek slowly released Daniel's arm. "It's here," he muttered. Daniel whispered, "What is here?" Marek didn't answer. He only walked to the wall and pressed his hand against one of the painted symbols. Outside, the forest shifted. Daniel felt it before he saw it. A strange pressure in the air, like the space around the cabin had changed. He looked out through a small crack in the boarded window and froze. The trees outside were no longer still. They were closer. Not physically moving like animals, but rearranging. The forest layout itself was changing. Paths disappearing, others forming where none existed before. Daniel stepped back slowly. "This isn't possible," he whispered. Marek shook his head. "It happens when it focuses on you." A low sound began rising outside, not wind, not animals, something deeper. Like thousands of breaths overlapping each other. Daniel checked his camera. The recording had no audio, but in the room, the sound was growing louder. The candles flickered again, and one by one, they went out. Darkness swallowed the cabin. Daniel's flashlight turned on instantly. Its beam revealed Marek standing very still. Too still. Daniel aimed the light properly. Marek's eyes were wide now, not at Daniel, but behind him. Daniel turned slowly. Nothing, just the door. But then he noticed something on the floor. Wet footprints, fresh, leading from the door, inside, slowly forming one step at a time, as if someone invisible was walking through the cabin. Daniel stepped backward. "Marek!" No response. The footprints continued moving around the room, circling him, then stopping directly behind him. Daniel spun around instantly. Or nothing there, but Marek was no longer sitting. He was standing now, facing the mirror. Daniel's flashlight followed him, and that's when Daniel saw it. In the mirror, Marek was sitting calmly on the chair, but in reality, he was standing and smiling at something behind Daniel. Daniel slowly turned his head, but Marek shouted suddenly, "Don't look!" Too late. Daniel turned fully. The space behind him looked empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy, dense, like something was occupying it without being seen. A whisper came right beside his ear, not Marek's voice, not his own. A third voice, low, close. "Now we know you." Daniel stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. It rolled across the floor. Its beam revealed something impossible for a split second. A shape standing where nothing should be, perfectly matching Daniel's outline. But not him. It tilted its head slightly, like it was learning how he moved. The cabin door suddenly slammed open on its own. Cold wind rushed inside, and every symbol on the walls began to fade. Marek grabbed Daniel. "We have to move now," he said urgently. Daniel hesitated. "Move where?" Marek pointed into the forest. "The forest is shifting. It's creating exits." Daniel stared at the darkness outside. For the first time, even the trees looked different, like they were watching him breathe. And somewhere deep inside the forest, something began walking toward the cabin again. Marek pulled Daniel out of the cabin before he could hesitate again. Cold air hit them like a wall. The fog outside had changed. It wasn't just thicker, it moved, slowly shifting in patterns that felt deliberate, as if it was guiding them, or trapping them. "Stay close," Marek whispered. Daniel followed, keeping his flashlight low. Every few seconds he looked back. The cabin was already fading into the fog, like it was never fully there. They moved deeper between the trees. The forest no longer felt random. Paths formed in front of them and vanished behind them. Daniel noticed it immediately. "This wasn't here a minute ago," he said. Marek didn't respond. He only walked faster. After several minutes, the ground changed. The soil turned darker, almost black. The trees grew wider. Older, carved markings covered their bark, but now Daniel could clearly see a pattern, not random symbols, a structure, a direction. The forest was forming a path on purpose. Then Marek stopped. They had reached a clearing. Daniel stepped forward slowly and froze. The clearing was massive, far larger than it should have been inside the forest, and in the center, something stood. An ancient structure, stone, covered in roots, half buried in the ground, like something built before the forest swallowed it. Daniel whispered, "What is this place?" Marek's voice was barely audible. "The heart." Daniel looked at him. "What heart?" Marek pointed at the structure. "That one." They approached carefully. The closer they got, the more Daniel felt it. Pressure in the air, like the space itself was watching them. The structure had no doors, only a narrow opening collapsed inward. Inside was darkness, deeper than the forest night. Daniel raised his camera. "This is insane," he muttered. Then something caught his attention, objects inside the structure. He stepped closer, and his breath stopped. Belongings, hundreds of them, backpacks. Phones, cameras, shoes, children's toys, everything carefully arranged like storage, not abandoned, collected. Daniel whispered, "These are missing people's things." Marek nodded slowly. "Everything it takes, it keeps." Daniel moved further inside the entrance. His flashlight revealed names carved into stone walls, dates, locations, reports, all connected to disappearances across decades. "This is impossible," Daniel said. "No forest can do this." Marek stepped beside him. "It's not a forest anymore." Daniel turned. "What is it then?" Marek looked at the darkness inside the structure. A long pause, then he said, "A system." A low vibration suddenly spread through the ground. The structure responded. Dust fell from above. The objects inside began shifting slightly, like they were breathing. Daniel stepped back immediately. "That's not possible." Marek grabbed his arm. "We need to leave before it finishes adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" Marek's eyes stayed fixed on the structure. "To you." A sound echoed from deep inside the stone chamber, not footsteps, not wind. Something moving through space itself. Daniel pointed the flashlight inside and saw it. A silhouette forming from the darkness, slowly taking shape. It stepped forward, and it looked exactly like Daniel again. But this time, it was smiling. From inside the forest's heart, the copy tilted its head and spoke softly. "You finally brought me home." The ground beneath them trembled harder. The structure began opening, not like a door, like a mouth. The structure did not open like stone, it opened like something alive, remembering how to breathe. The dark inside expanded slowly. A deep pressure rolled outward through the clearing. Daniel stumbled back, camera shaking violently. Marek grabbed his arm. "Run!" he shouted, but Daniel couldn't move. He was staring at himself. The copy inside the structure stepped closer. Its face matched his perfectly. Same eyes, same expression, but wrong. Too calm, too certain. "It doesn't make copies," Marek said urgently. "It replaces you." Daniel finally broke free and ran. Marek followed through the trees as the entire forest seemed to react. Paths shifted again, trees leaning slightly as if adjusting direction. The ground pulsed under their feet. The forest was guiding them somewhere, or pushing them away. Daniel kept running until his lungs burned. Behind them, the sound of movement grew louder. Not chasing footsteps, but something unfolding through space. Like reality itself bending. They broke through the tree line suddenly, and Daniel stopped hard. A road, real pavement, a narrow highway cutting through the forest, streetlights flickering weakly in the fog. "No," Daniel whispered, "this wasn't here before." Marek nodded. It wasn't. Daniel looked back. The forest behind them was still there, but different again, like it had been rearranged just for this exit. The copy was gone, no sign of it. Only silence. For the first time in hours, nothing followed them. Marek pushed him forward. "Go, don't stop." Daniel stepped onto the road slowly. The moment his foot touched asphalt, the forest sounds stopped completely, even the wind died. Daniel turned around. The trees were still, watching. Then Marek stepped onto the road too, and something changed instantly. As the fog thickened violently behind them, the forest edge blurred, like it was losing definition. Marek looked alarmed. "No, it shouldn't do that." Daniel frowned. "What's happening?" Marek stared at him. "It's separating you." Before Daniel could ask what he meant, the world behind Marek flickered, just for a second, like a bad signal, and Marek's outline shifted slightly. Not fully, just enough to notice. Daniel stepped back. "Marek?" Marek looked confused for a moment, then his expression tightened. "They're not done." A distant sound echoed from the forest, not footsteps, a voice, Daniel's voice, calling from deep inside the trees. "Don't leave me here." Daniel froze instantly. "That's not me," he whispered. Marek nodded slowly. "It's learning you faster now." The road behind them began stretching into the fog. The forest edges distorting like heat waves, then something even worse happened. Daniel looked down at his hands. For a split second, they flickered, like static. He stumbled back. "What is this?" Marek grabbed him again. "Listen to me," he said urgently. "You didn't escape it. You only stepped into its boundary." Daniel's breathing became uneven. "What does that mean?" Marek pointed toward the road ahead. "It can't fully copy you inside its core. But outside," he paused, "it starts finishing the version it already made." Daniel's face went pale. Behind them, the forest began to grow quieter. Not peaceful, empty, like something had been removed. And then, a third figure appeared on the road ahead, standing in the fog, motionless, facing them. Daniel's exact shape, but now more defined than before, more real. And the copy raised its head slightly and spoke clearly. I found the second entrance. Marek whispered, "It's learning how to leave." And for the first time, the copy stepped forward onto the road. The moment the copy stepped onto the road, the air changed again. Not violently, not loudly, just incorrectly. Like reality had accepted something it shouldn't. Daniel stepped backward instinctively. Marek didn't move. He was staring at the copy like he already knew what would happen next. The copy stopped a few meters away. Its movements were smoother now, more human, more stable. "I remember this place," it said softly. Daniel's throat tightened. "That's not me," he said again, almost to himself. The copy tilted its head. "You said that before." Marek finally spoke. "It's not copying you anymore," he said quietly. "It's becoming you." Daniel looked at him sharply. "That's impossible." Marek shook his head. "You're thinking of identity like it's fixed. This thing doesn't think that way." The copy took another step forward. The streetlights above flickered, one by one, as if reacting to it. Daniel turned slightly toward Marek. "What happens if it fully becomes me?" Marek hesitated, then answered honestly. "Then you stop being the original." A long silence followed. Even the forest behind them felt distant now, like it was watching from a different reality. The copy looked at Daniel directly, and for the first time, there was emotion in its expression. Confusion. "I don't understand," it said. "I have your memories. I have your voice. I have your fear." It paused, and then added softly, "But I don't feel like I'm missing anything." Daniel's breath caught. The copy stepped closer again. Marek suddenly grabbed Daniel's shoulder. "Don't engage with it," he warned. But Daniel couldn't look away. The copy raised its hand, slowly, carefully, like it was learning how to gesture. "You left something inside," it said. Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" The copy pointed back toward the forest. "The part that stayed behind." Marek's grip tightened. "That's how it works," he muttered. "It splits you." Daniel shook his head. "No, I left nothing there." The copy smiled faintly. "You did." A sudden pressure hit Daniel's mind, not physical, mental, like a memory forcing itself upward. He saw flashes, the cabin, the footprints, the voices, the research station, the structure in the forest heart. But now something was different. There were moments he didn't remember, standing still in the fog, watching himself from far away, speaking words he never spoke. Daniel staggered back. "No, that's not real." Marek looked at him carefully. "You're starting to see the overlap." The copy took another step, now only a few feet away. "I don't want to replace you," it said. "I just want to finish becoming you." Daniel raised the flashlight slightly, but his hand was shaking too much to aim properly. Marek stepped between them. "Stop," he said firmly to the copy. The copy looked at Marek for the first time. And something shifted in its expression. Recognition. "You are unstable," it said. Marek went still. The copy continued. "You are incomplete," Marek whispered under his breath. "No." The copy nodded slightly. "I see what they did to you." Marek stepped back slowly. Daniel noticed his breathing change, unsteady, shallow. The copy turned its attention back to Daniel. "The forest doesn't create copies," it said again. "It removes boundaries." Daniel swallowed hard. "Between what?" The copy answered simply, "Between what you are and what you could be." A sudden silence fell over everything. Even the fog stopped moving. Then the copy stepped forward one last time, close enough now that Daniel could see every detail, every flaw, every familiarity. And it whispered, "You don't belong to one version anymore." Marek suddenly grabbed Daniel hard. "Now!" he shouted, and pulled him backward into the fog. Daniel's hand froze just before touching the copy. For a second, everything stopped. No wind, no fog movement, no sound. Only silence stretching across the forest. Then Daniel saw it again, not outside, inside his mind, himself, standing in the forest heart, still watching, waiting. His breathing broke. "No, I never left there," he whispered. Marek stepped closer urgently. "It's merging you," he said. The copy lowered its hand, calm, patient. "You are not two people. it said softly. "You are a split." The fog tightened around Daniel again. Reality flickered. Forest, road, cabin, structure, all overlapping at once. Daniel fell to his knees. His memories collided, walking deeper. Standing before the stone structure, touching it, smiling, but also running away. Both happening at the same time. Marek grabbed him. "Focus on one truth," he said. Daniel looked up, tears in his eyes. "What truth?" The copy stepped closer and answered first. "The forest doesn't trap bodies. It traps versions." Silence hit like a wall. The fog stopped completely. Even Marek froze. The copy extended its hand one final time. Not forceful, not threatening, just final. "Choose what continues outside." Daniel looked between Marek and the copy. Then at the forest, then at himself. And slowly, he whispered, "I don't know which one I am anymore." The copy nodded gently. "That is why you belong here." Daniel closed his eyes, and in that moment, the fog swallowed everything.